Hey, good morning today. Welcome to today's episode of Sunday Over Easy. I'm going to focus on the dopamine reward cycle on this episode. It's a fancy name, but basically, man, dopamine is kind of has a plethora of effects inside us. It gives us a sense of well-being. It helps our the neurons, nerves in our brain communicate to one another efficiently, and it also helps pathways develop inside our brain. So for different ways that we utilize different areas of our brain with thinking and processing information and stuff, dopamine's a big caveat to some of the success or maybe the losses that we experience because we don't utilize it the best way that we possibly can. So, this episode, I'm going to more focus on dopamine as far as it gives us a sense of confidence, of perseverance, of willing to kind of keep on going, And a lot of us, especially with high achievers, you look at, like, I work with a lot of residents and physicians and stuff, and I just look at all of the trials that they have to go through just to be able to get to the ability to practice medicine. And there's there's cycles that, that they go through, and a lot of other people go through too in their academic and even their business life and stuff, where they're working very hard to achieve a certain place, and then they have to start over again, so like, you finish medical school, and then boom, you get this, I finished, and then all of a sudden you have to start, your residency or your fellowship or your internship, and you're starting at the bottom, you start over again. So there's this big crash of this dopamine reward, and you have to slowly start building it back up, so it's this boom, 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 and it can take its toll, and I could see a lot of, I observe a lot, I think I observe more during surgery than I do actually assist, because it actually helps me better to anticipate and really realize how people think. And when I realize how people think, I'm able to actually do a lot better at my job and stuff, instead of just, trying to be all that, I know this or I know that, just see how people are thinking, how they go about processing information, and what they need from me in order to help them do their job a lot better, So witnessing that dopamine, how it's just so difficult. And then you put on top of that, man, the everyday stresses of life, trying to have a relationship, having a wife, having somebody you care about, having kids, trying to make, make enough money to survive, trying to do all these things that we do. But you put that on top of this, really high achiever level of an individual. And man, it can be overwhelming at times. You hear people commit suicide sometimes. And man, I tell you, when I hear that, it rocks me to my core, because I've been very close to that in my own life, So anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about how dopamine and how we can actually work on those ebbs when we experience those crashes in our achievement towards our successes. That idea of failure is part of success. It's very true, man. It's like, if you look at how we're constantly failing in order to achieve, So if, in order to not let that failure define us and look at that failure as a path to our success, a big impetus for that is figure out how to moderate that dopamine release, so that when we feel like, man, I'm trying so hard and I'm failing, I'm trying to, hey, you know what, man, I'm trying, but I know I'm getting someplace. So how do I do that? That kind of incentive, that kind of like, I can do this. I know I can do, even though I'm having a tough time now, I know I can do this, right? That sense of drive has a lot to do with dopamine and the ability that it gives our brain to give us this willingness to go forward. I try to give credit to people that really kind of help me in my own I say we're the recovery in a loose way. I think we're all recovering. So I'm not saying recovery makes a simple standpoint. So the fact that how I choose to recover whatever stuff, and I give credit. These people don't know me, but I research them a lot and stuff. And I think it's important in life to give people credit to help you, who help you get to where you're at. So, some people can say, you know what, man, I might research that guy. I might research that guy, Anyway, Dr. Huberman is one of the guys. He has some YouTube videos that are very fantastic to listen to. The guy's extremely intelligent. I didn't want to tell you, man, he's really immense about stuff. And then Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's, and I say, man, you listen to these guys, it's very difficult in the beginning. You're like, this is way over my head. But if you pay attention to it, you stick with it, it starts to make sense after a while. So listen, I don't want to take forever on this stuff. Let's get into this stuff. And I'm not saying these guys acknowledge what I'm saying as being right, because I've done my own my own theology, philosophy, my own views on psychology have all kind of come into play with this. So I created my own song with it, if you want to say. I'm just rewriting it a little bit. So right off the bat, man, the ability to look inside ourselves. We constantly are outside focused. What does this person think? How does this person, think? Don't get me wrong. There's some sense of balance with that. But if we constantly have our ideals set outside of ourselves and think, we're kind of in this really ego-based thing where we have a very limited ability to perceive ourselves. Once we start looking inside ourselves and say, hey, what's going on? How am I processing? Yeah, I'm upset. Yeah, I'm this, but why am I upset? Why does this make me feel this way? Why does this, how come this person makes me feel good? How come this person makes me feel good? Is this benefit? That type of inner looking inside, that in itself has an effect on the ability for our body to release something called serotonin, which is very similar to dopamine, has a lot of similar qualities to it. So just by having that thought process, we all already are starting the mechanisms of actually self-healing and working on trying to improve ourselves in many different ways. There's a cycle, with dopamine that has all these benefits and effects to it, and I'm just throwing things out there fairly quickly. There's another side to that. There's an opposite side to that. There's a thing called tachykinase, which is a chemical the body releases in responses to threat, and it inspires kind of that negative thing that, oh, I'm a failure, man. Geez, I'm a fraud. I'm not, I'm trying to do all this stuff, and there's actually a chemical that kind of is produced in the body that fuels that type of thinking, that type of behavior. Tachykinase is that chemical. So as we start to be engrossed with that type of feeling, our dopamine responses go down, the tachykinase goes up. And tachykinase is something that actually labs can actually identify. They identify it in mice, they identify it in very simple structural organisms, and it also affects a very highly complex organism like the human brain. So tachykinase also works on a circuit inside the brain called the habenula. And I don't mean to throw a bunch of big things out there, but the habenula is just this part of the brain that is tied more into the opposite side of that dopamine, that kind of cognitive thinking that inspires us. It's actually kind of a negative cycle. So there's a yin and a yang to almost everything in life. So this is kind of yang to that dopamine cycle. And the habenula is actually tied into some of our innate anatomy, like the pancreas. And it moderates our blood sugar levels and things like that. So think about it, man. When you're going stressed out, I can't lose, I'm a failure, man. I suck, I do so that. And then you start gaining weight, right? Then you start doing all these things. All these comorbidities start taking effect. And you're like, my God, everything in my life is just coming in. The habenula plays a big role in that, right? So that may seem like a big lot of la-di-da, but if you realize, hey man, there's some anatomy inside my brain that's causing these things to happen. How can I address this thing? And looking at it from a scientific standpoint, it falls over, man. It falls over into theology. It falls over into philosophy. It falls over into psychiatry. So if you kind of just try to widen your view of things a lot. I love the line from Animal House. Dean Weber talking, I think it's the fat guy, and don't get me wrong, I'm not fat. I've been fat myself too. I still have some extra weight going on, but I think it's Pluto. He goes, fat, dumb, and stupid is no way to go. Fat, dumb, and drunk is no way to go through life. That kind of applies to us all. Hey, am I stupid to this situation? And fat, I use that as lethargy. Am I just really not trying hard enough on something like that? Think about, do I need to try harder? Do I need to expand my ability to understand things better? So sometimes taking this approach to some of our perceived problems in life can be extremely rewarding, right? So I often want to paraphrase Neil deGrasse. He's a famous neuroscientist and stuff, and one of his quotes that I like a lot is that people may know enough to think they know something, but not know enough to not know that they don't know the whole. And so they're kind of like taking a chip shot at something that really requires a driver or something. I might be guilty of that myself, but I'm not telling you exactly like what I think is right. I'm just telling you how I think, what I think, that has helped me a lot in my recovery. So I'm just trying to pass that on to you, and maybe that might be able to help you achieve some of the maybe goals, or just get past some of those ebbs in those goals to kind of keep going a little higher. So I just got a little bit about the dopamine craving and other things. And I just want to talk a little bit about some things that we spend in life that, my cat is driving me crazy, so I'm trying to talk to you here. But anyway, there's my cat. And actually, he's not that bad. He's kind of irritates me because he wants a lot of attention, but I can relate to that too. So dopamine, how does that play into our life? It's actually kind of creating a crux, you know what I'm saying? Let's face it, man, we all are sexual creatures. We'll have these desires, we'll have these innate, But a big thing towards sex, a big thing towards the dialogue, to the action, towards the thing, is the dopamine release, man. We get a high off of the dopamine release. So like when sex gets boring, we kind of, hey, man, I kind of been doing this, now on this for a while. It really doesn't give you the same thing. That's all relationship to the dopamine, So how you kind of maybe recreate your sex life, recreate adventure with the person that you love, create scenarios, you're actually recalibrating the dopamine release cycle. So you're actually kind of taking it from this high point where you had this euphoria, your honeymoon phase, all these things, and it crashes afterward. You kind of like, man, it's the same also. Well, you gotta kind of do things to kind of make things interesting, create scenarios, create, role play, do things like that. And you create these false scenarios, and it restages the dopamine cycle. So, hey, man, I can't wait to get home tonight, man. I'm gonna, where will I throw this one out or something like that? You're restaging the dopamine cycle. The same thing happens with video games and our phones, man. We're constantly plugged into that. Oh, did I get a hit on Facebook? This, TikTok, does this. And man, bro, man, I'm kind of into this too. So it's not like, I'm just trying to figure out how to use it effectively, right? So we get dopamine hits on those things. So we're kind of like, man, I want more. So why do I spend so much time on TikTok? And it's really not that interesting shit, but I keep getting a dopamine hit. Boom, another hit, another hit. If you have any experience, either yourself or witnessing addicts, that's the core of addiction, right? So we're all kind of maybe addicted in our own life in certain things. So seeing how that's playing out, hey man, what? And recognize and say, what? When you kind of see why it's happening, why am I spending so much time, playing video games, on my phone, stuck on these things. And then when I go into work, I go to start, I'm usually on a low, on an ebb, because I had to stop that, right? And so then I get this crash, right? And then I'm trying to focus on my job, and I'm not getting the same stimulation. My job's kind of boring, kind of annoying, but I realized, hey man, what? Before I go to work, before I do anything, I need to kind of spend some quiet time. I need to kind of reset my dopamine cycle. I kind of need to maybe meditate. Meditate's got a great way to help me kind of get back to that baseline, get back to that place. So when I start doing something, boom, I get a dopamine. Boom, I get a dopamine. If I'm got my dopamine cycle set so high because I've been looking at video games, I've been looking at porn, I've been doing this, I've been doing that, my dopamine cycle is so high that when I go in to do whatever my job is or whatever my purpose in life I feel is, I'm not getting the reward, I'm not getting the feel-good feeling at it because the dopamine cycle is low. I need to figure out how, hey man, I want to have enthusiasm. So you don't necessarily want to stop doing something because it's good or it's the thing. Maybe you want to stop doing it so you can restage your dopamine cycle, so you can have a sense of purpose, so you can really enjoy the little things in life, the little things that you enjoy by getting up in the morning, having a freaking cup of coffee, having some breakfast. It feels good. You get a dopamine reward. If you're so binged out on all the little things that you let feedback, Facebook, boom, 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 you don't get those sense of, hey man, what? Just watching the sunrise is really freaking nice. You're not getting that dopamine reward. So if you're how to stage that, I have a bunch of notes. I'm going to try to maybe not go over those things. But, think about how dopamine plays into the 7 deadly sins. Think about vanity. Think about jealousy. I'm not quoting them, but, think about, even lethargy, things like that. They all have a big effect in the dopamine reward cycle. The fact that I don't want to do anything. I want to sit on my ass. I want to watch TV. I want to stuff my face. I've kind of taken the dopamine reward cycle and I turned it into an opioid cycle. So I've kind of got this thing of, what, man, I'm really not doing nothing, but I'm just giving myself little hits once in a while so I can keep on going. I'm going to have another potato chip, gonna have another thing. That's part of the opioid cycle, and that's part of the way that our brain is releasing a sense of feel good that's in a very negative way that's affecting our ability to actually engage that dopamine reward cycle in a productive manner. There's a good side and the bad side to everything, right, man? It's so, sugar, hey, some sugar is, you go to the gym, you have some sugar before you go to the gym, it increases the permeability of muscles, so boom, mitochondria can produce energy very quickly, rapidly deanimate a glucose molecule. Anyway, things get, and then the bad side of sugar is, man, if you're sitting on your ass and you're eating sugar and dessert all the time and going to bed, the muscles don't need it, so you're just going to store it as triglycerides. It's going to turn into fat, and you're going to get fat from it, right? So how do I leverage that sugar cycle in my body? How can I do that? Whatever. The same thing with the dopamine. So what, man? I don't want to nix dopamine, and I don't want to OD on it, and especially don't want to take exogenous sources of dopamine. So the fact that with drug addiction, things like that, that's a major play in the dopamine cycle. The fact that what happens in that parts of the brain where the synapse takes place in the sexuality, the kind of feel good play, that cocaine has an effect on the way that the receptor bounces back and forth, so it gets overstimulated, overexcited, and there's no natural dopamine release that can compensate for that exogenous source of dopamine, which is cocaine, amphetamines, different types of things. So the ability for us, we usually go through a big crash. An addict will go through a big crash. They have to wait a long time, not a long time, but days or whatever. So before they kind of start building up a dopamine and they feel good about life, they don't want to kill themselves. Man, a lot of times when people commit suicide, it's because that dopamine cycle is so freaking low. They don't see any hope. They don't see no point tomorrow. They don't see nothing. But if they could carry on a little bit, get through that phase of that part of themselves where they're just feeling so down, they don't have any good feeling about themselves, and then wait till, hey, you know what, man? Maybe I need to clean the bathroom. Maybe I feel like a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? I drank too much. I was an asshole to my wife. I did all these things. So what do I need to do? Usually what happens is in psychology format, you want to keep that train of thought. So you want to sit on your ass. You want to do nothing. And you want to, excuse me, my cat's driving me crazy. You want to nurture that bad feeling. So you have to go against what you want to do. So I don't really want to clean the bathroom. I don't want to do the dishes. I don't want to mow the lawn. Well, that's what you need to do. Because when you do that, you'll restage the dopamine reward cycle, right? If you feel like a piece of shit when you start to do it, but as you start to do it, when you finally finish it, right? You'll have that dopamine reward cycle set, so you start feeling good about things. Like, hey man, this is okay. Think about high achievers. Man, some of the goals that you have for your life, you're gonna have times when your goals where you're failing. It's part of success. It's not this, oh yeah, I failed. Oh man, it's apropos. It's in the algorithm for achieving. You have to fail in order to achieve. You have to go through this stage of I got it. I'm not getting, then you get it, then you lose, and again, it's part of growing. It's part of building. So the ability to navigate through those highs and lows of the dopamine reward cycle can really do so much for us in not feeling like a failure in the middle of our success. You know what I'm saying? So man, I look at one of the residents one time told me not too long ago. She's like, I felt like committing suicide the second year of my residency, and think about that, man. This chick's done so much. She's achieved so much in her life. She's got just so much potential. But that dopamine reward was so low, so down, she almost took her life. She said, I almost killed myself. I could tell she wasn't joking. She was serious about that, So think about that, suicide is a permanent fix for a temporary problem. Does that not make a lot of sense when you think about the dopamine reward cycle? So listen, man, if you're feeling down, if you know somebody who's feeling down, you might not be able to explain all the jargon to them, but you might be able to say, listen, I need some help doing some little things today. Do you think you can kind of come out and just give me a hand? I really appreciate it. And hey, may I give you a couple bucks? I'm saying, you really will help me out. You do it. What you're doing when you do something, that act of benevolence is actually helping somebody restage their dopamine reward cycle. So you might, have a big, ability to see things in a very vast way. But if you kind of hone down on the simple things, say, hey, you know what? I can see this person needs some help. Let me figure out a way to kind of help them get the sense of goodness, get the sense of confidence, the sense of, hey, you know what? I'm an okay guy. We all fail. We all have our bad sides to us. You know what I'm saying? And, the key to that thing, too, is if we get too focused on judging other people's bad, it winds up coming back at us because it affects the way that we feel about ourselves. We said anyway, I don't want to get too lost in different things, but if you look at that thing, you can say, you know what, man, I really need to keep the focus on me. And that's what I kind of look at as sometimes we need to be selfish in a selfless way. Sometimes we really need to keep the focus on not us in an egotistical way, but us in a way of how am I managing my ego? My ego is part of who I am. So I need to be looking at what my ego is doing and how it's doing what it's doing. Not necessarily what I'm thinking. How am I thinking? What am I thinking? Man, I just want you to say I really admire you. Man, you just give me so much, man. It's kind of like I when I realize I'm the same thing, right? You really kind of piss me off. You really only give a shit about yourself. You really only this. You really only that. So I'm kind of taking this person's inventory, but I'm really kind of like building this false sense of ego in me that I'm all this. Oh, I'm not all that. And I am all that at the same time. There's a balance to it, man. And getting the balance right is so difficult in life. And all I'm saying is if we start looking at that in a dopamine reward cycle, we might be like, oh, holy shit, that makes a lot of sense. And you start looking at, it's maybe too, but look at the little things. How am I starting my day? What am I doing during the middle of my day? What am I doing when I have some time off? Am I running to my phone? And like I said, I'm not judging. I'm trying to correct this behavior myself all the time too. But it's so insightful to me to realize why I'm doing what I'm doing. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this probably because I got this dopamine reward cycle that really is unchecked, and I need to get a check on it. I need to take an inventory of myself and say, you know what, man? You can do some things. We always can do things to improve ourselves. So it's not like we can do it all. And man, I suffer from this so much. It's like, I want to do so much and I feel like I'm failing so much. But part of that failing for me, I know is part of my success, is being able to work through that failing. I hope this kind of helps you a little bit. I certainly didn't cover all the things that I would, and I don't have enough time. It's probably better than I did. But I just wanted to give you some kind of final things to kind of think about, if we figure out ways, we have big goals that we're trying to achieve, try to incorporate little goals along those ways. Man, think about going to the gym, and not necessarily just go to the gym, but think about going to the gym. I want to challenge myself in the gym. I did this yesterday, or I did this last week. I'd like to get to another. Instead I did 8, I'd rather do 12 reps. Instead I did 20 pounds. I want to kind of get up to 25 pounds. So set these little stages for yourself in your big goals, right? Hey man, I'm going to school, I'm doing this, I want to make this amount of money this year, I want to invest in the stock market, I want to do this, and then go from there. And that will help restage the dopamine reward cycle and help you in little ways when you're trying to achieve the big things, right? So sometimes little things are the big things, and we don't realize it. If we can focus on the little things sometimes in the right way, it can really help us be all we can be and achieve those things that we really want to achieve. I just say there's a lot of ways to think about this. So whether you're at home, on your own home, and you're cleaning the house, or whether you got a garden in the backyard that some days you just can't wait to get off of work and go into the garden and plant some seeds. There's so many ways that affects you, and I can't talk about them all, and I don't know them all, but I know a lot of different things about how things affect you. And one of those things is the dopamine reward cycle. So I encourage you to maybe take a look at that, how that's affecting you on a day-to-day basis. I hope you all have a great New Year 2022, man. And just try to think about that. When you think you're failing failing today, think about, hey man, you know what, this failure that I'm experiencing, if I look at it in the right way, it's an alchemy. I can turn this water into wine. Right? And think about who the people in my life, who are my role models that can teach me how to turn water to wine in a metaphoric way. Think about those people. Think about those philosophies, those philosophers. Be a philosopher. Philosophize. Who am I going to follow? Who do I want to observe how they think? Not necessarily what they think, but think about how these people they think a certain way. How do they think? They don't think of failure as this is. They think of failure in a totally different way than I think of failure. So trying to figure out who your role models are and look at those to help you. Bye-bye.